Hello everybody. Today we're gonna be going over an example problem for IB math studies of like lines and perpendicular lines and stuff like that. So the problem gives us that the straight line L1 has this equation and that the point A has coordinate 6, 0. So part A tells us to give a reason why L1 does not pass through A. And the easiest way to do this is just plug in the points that they give us for A. So I plug in 0 for Y and 6 for X, right? Now, if the point A does pass through this line, then plugging in A has to make this statement true. If this statement is false, then these numbers do not pass through this line. So 2 times 0 is 0. 3 times 6 is going to be negative 18. And all of this equals 11. And so negative 18, as we all know, does not equal 11. So this is not an equivalency. Therefore, L1 does not pass through A. And so leaving it like this should be enough information. And then writing like a small paragraph saying like, well, what you just mentioned. So that's part A. Part B is finding the gradient of L1. Let's remember that gradient is the same as slope. And working around with L1 a little bit, what you want to do is lead it to the y equals mx plus b formation. This is because m is slope. Like whatever is next to x is going to be the slope. But the thing is, you can't just write down that it's negative 3 right away because you don't have it in this form yet. You can only say what the slope is when you have it in this form. I mean, that's one of the ways to do it. So leaving y alone, adding x to the other side, then dividing by 2, we end up with this line right here. This is the same as L1, but we just played around with the values a little bit. Of course, the slope or the gradient is going to be 3 over 2. And I insist, you can only conclude this if you lead it to the y equals mx plus b formation. So for part B, we say that the gradient is 3 over 2. Now for part C, they tell us that L2 is a line perpendicular to L1, right? And the equation of L2 is y equals mx plus b plus c, sorry. So what is the value of m? Well, if you want to learn it by memory, if L1 is perpendicular to L2, then the gradient of L2 is going to be the flip and the negative of L1. So the value of m for L2 is going to be negative 2 over 3. Okay? If you want to learn it by memory, that you flip it and you hit it and times a negative 1, then that's the way you can find the answer. But the explanation why is, let's say you have L1 that looks something like this. If you only flip it, right, let's imagine that this slope is going to be, we're going to make it 3 over 2. Or no, we're going to make this slope 2. Okay? If I were to only flip the slope would still be positive. So the next line would be something like that. This is why necessarily you have to add the negative 1. Multiply by the negative 1. Because here the slope would be 2. And if you do 1/2, it's going to go downward. And it makes like the X shape, which is the classic perpendicular that we all know. Okay? That's just a quick explanation of why you flip it and multiply it by negative 1. So For part C, we flip it times -1, as we said before, -2/3. Finally, for part D, they tell us that L does pass through A. So what is the value of C? Well, here you necessarily have to use this guy right here, which is the point slope formula, which is actually not in the formula booklet, but it is extremely useful, and I highly recommend that you learn it. So this guy right here, the y1 is just going to be like, this would be my y1, and this would be my x1. It's just the x's and y's in a given point. So to use this formula, I need y1, x1, and the slope, which is m. The y and x that are by themselves are actually they're just variables, so don't worry about that. But using this formula, I can plug in point A right here. And so y minus y1, which is 0, is equal to m, which I found on part C, times x minus 6. So playing around with this a little bit, y equals -2/3 x. This is going to be plus 12/3, because when you multiply straight across, then it would be -2 times -6, positive 12 divided by 3. And this is going to simplify to -2/3 x plus 4. Now, important, you always have to make sure that you look at what the question is asking for, okay? This is not the final answer. The final answer is saying what the value of C is. The value of C is going to be 4, which is this value right here. As we mentioned before, they gave us that the equation L2 has this form right here. So if we reach this form somehow, we're going to reach that C equals 4. And I reiterate, it's very important that you know the point slope formula. It simplifies so many of these equations, and I feel like it's probably the fastest way to do it. So there it is. I hope it helped.